Hello, Pat. I can't hear you, but maybe that's because you're on mute.
Yep,
That's better.
here you go.
Hi, Winston. Hi, Fred.
Hey, Fred.
Hello.
Somebody.
Hey, folks. Testing. Good evening. Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yep.
Can hear you loud and clear. Hi, Winston.
Hello.
That works.
I do Teams calls all day long, but I can't figure out Zoom for the life of me, it turns out.
Yeah. I don't seem to be able to get a big list of everybody now either. Oh, well.
Testing 1, 2. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Hello, can people hear me? I can't hear anybody else.
I can hear you.
We
I
can hear you,
can hear
Michael.
you.
We're just sitting patiently waiting.
Well, I'll tell you where I'm at right now. I'm in my car. I just got done with a cancer radiation treatment at Rochester and Mayo Clinic.
Wow.
Well, thank you for joining us. I hope you're doing okay.
It's kicking my you-know-what.
Sorry to hear that.
Yeah. Well, it's better than the alternative of living with cancer for the rest of my life, however long that might be.
Well, thank you for joining us.
I'm happy to join so I don't talk about or think about cancer for at least an hour or so.
That's a good plan. I think I heard Don. Don, are you on? I think he might be muted.
Don is on the dreaded mute.
And I think I see Vita is on, but I don't see her screen or hear her voice. We'll just keep waiting.
Okay.
Oh, Don, we hear you now.
You can hear me. Okay.
Yep.
Oh, Vita's here.
Yeah, she's logged on, but I haven't heard or seen her yet.
No, I haven't.
Don, do you have an agenda for today's discussion?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Do we get to see it, Don?
I I'm not capable of putting it on there.
Can you send it to me via email? And then
No.
I'm happy to share it via email.
If I went to my email, I would lose this Zoom.
Oh, okay. Let's not do that then.
I can't do both things at once.
Okay.
I know it's possible, but I'd rather not lose this here. I can tell you what it is.
Great. There we go. I'll write it down.
Number one, David Wellington is going to discuss the Curry Commons, built on land owned by Carl Eller. Number
Okay.
two, David Davies will talk about the progress of the Southwest LRT Green Line. And three, Jim Vole will talk about possible future developments in the Bassett Creek Valley. So that's the agenda. I only have 3 items. Is there anything else that should be added? Not hearing anything, so I assume this is the agenda.
So I would just amend that I think we received an email from David Davies saying that he had a conflict this evening and won't be able to join us to update us on the Southwest LRT
Okay,
Green
that's
Line.
right. So we have a short of agenda, I guess.
That's right.
Vita, are you there?
Vita
I'm
looks like
texting
she's
her.
on, but she is on mute.
That's odd. Or should we just start by introducing who is here, I guess, and maybe by
Hey,
that-
Jerry.
Yeah, that sounds good, Don.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. Dave, you want to start?
Sure. David Wellington, business rep, owner of Wellington Management, developer and owner in the Valley.
And I'll take Don Austinson, H&A rep and long-term chair of the ROC committee. Brad, do you want to go next?
Yeah, Fred Olson, alternate from Friends of Bassett Creek.
Pat?
Pat Carney, business owner and property owner in Bass Creek.
Colleen?
Colleen Belmont, Bryn Mawr rep and resident.
Marcus? Marcus?
Yes, I'm here. I'm Marcus Carr. Sorry, I'm in my car also. You probably can't see me.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah.
Nice, nice. I am the program director for a 29-year-old organization called Youth Farm, and also the co-chair of the Homegrown Minneapolis Food Council in the Health Department, and resident of Harrison neighborhood. I was just told to meet you, fine people, that you're doing good work.
Thanks for coming, Marcus.
Thanks for coming.
Michael? Mark?
Michael Martin.
Go and mute myself. Michael Martin, Bryn Mawr resident and Bryn Mawr representative to the ROC. And I'm currently in Rochester getting radiation treatment for cancer on my sinuses. And I'm just glad to be alive and glad to be able to join you guys.
We're glad you're here, Michael. Winston, you're next.
Winston Wildbush, Bryn Mawr.
Jerry?
Oh, hi, Don and others. Jerry Krause, used to live in Bryn Mawr, moved out a little over 3 years ago, was on the ROC for a long time, and now just kind of lurk in the shadows.
Thank you, Jerry. Good to have you here. Vicky?
Vicky, you're on mute.
You're muted, Vicky.
We can see your lovely face.
You're
Can't
muted.
hear
We
you
can't
yet.
hear you.
Okay, there. I'm
There we
unmuted.
go.
Hi.
There we go.
Hi, Vicky.
Howdy.
Yeah, I think you were doing the introduction, but you were muted, so nobody heard you.
Well, I'm on a different device, and so I'm sort of at a loss where all the different buttons are here. So I'm mostly going to listen.
Okay. And you represent?
And that happened to have been my dog.
All right. Laura?
He was very upset because he's not sitting on my lap.
Okay. Laura, you want to introduce yourself?
I'm Laura Dickinson. I'm a business owner in Harrison.
Thank you. Vita, you here yet? Hello, Vita. Huh. All right. Jim Ball?
Hello, I'm Jim Vole. I work for CPED at the City of Minneapolis in the Planning Division.
Okay.
I just got a message from Vita saying she can't unmute and can't get her video going. I just suggested maybe she log out and log back in.
Okay, good. Where are we at? Nicole?
Hi, everyone. Nicole Bueller, Executive Director for the Harrison Neighborhood Association.
Okay, thank you. Eric? Hello, Eric.
I think Eric sent a message saying he's finishing up dinner with his daughter and will be joining us soon. Sorry for the
Okay,
inconvenience.
did I miss anyone?
Yep, I'm here now. Sorry,
Oh,
guys.
thanks, Eric. Sorry.
Yep, no, you're all good. I just joined. Sorry about that.
Then we have a 612 number. That's Kim Donay, General Counsel, Wellington, and part owner of Leaf.
Well, David, as you're first on the agenda, do you want to kick this off?
Sure. I'm pulling up some pictures. We had a very nice groundbreaking back in November. Can everybody see the image that is on my screen? Okay.
Yes.
So you're looking southwest. The Leaf office building is kind of in the bottom right of your screen. The Art Space housing project is further to the right. And then that big crane is over the top of the Curry Commons project. It was a 72,000 square foot parcel that we acquired into a new development entity called Curry Commons LLC that my dad, Steve, myself, and Carl Eller are all owners in. And we are building 187 units of low-income housing tax credit housing that will be income restricted for 40 years on a LURA, on a deed restriction. We started construction in October, closed finance in November. It was trying times for our team to get to the closing table, given the interest rate environment changing very rapidly on us. But we were able to get it done. And we're so far so good with regard to the contamination remediation that is a remnant of the old Warden oil refinery that was a longstanding use on this site. It was cleaned up originally in 2000, I think 2005 or 6 by the state and Hennepin County. And then in the interim, some minor flooding pushed a lot of the deeper contamination that was further down in the strata up to the surface. It's called the smear zone. It's the technical term. And so the top layers of clean fill that was brought in that remediation event in 2005 and 6 was recontaminated. So we have had to haul about 28,000 tons of contaminated soil offsite, and had to bring in new fill for that, which the good news is we had some grants for all of that extra work. And then we also have to, as I'm sure some of the close neighbors know, pile 400 steel piles down between 100 and 135 feet to get the torsional strength to be able to carry the columns and the footings for the 187 unit project. So we're about 3/4 of the way through that loud piling exercise. We're almost done. The piles we're doing now are kind of in the northwest area, and those are unfortunately needing to go deeper, and they're taking longer than we would like, but we're pretty much on track from a cost perspective and a time perspective. It's going to take us another 14 months or so to build. We'll deliver it in the early spring of 2024, so next year. We'll start doing the leasing for it probably a couple of months before that, so about a year from now. And we'll be asking for help from many of the neighbors and organizations to help spread the word to get hopefully it's a first come first serve income restricted project, but we would like to see neighbors that are existing in Harrison already move into this project because they know how wonderful the neighborhood is and they will populate the building well. We will certainly have a large grand opening ceremony, and you all will be invited, and hopefully you will take us up on that invitation. We had many ROC members at our groundbreaking event, and we were very happy to share that wonderful occasion with everybody. Happy to run through some pictures here. These are actually from today, so good timing, and answer any questions that people may have about this project, or I know a little bit about some of the other projects in the neighborhood like this one. This is the Habitat for Humanity Land Trust project that's underway as well up on Cedar Lake Road.
David, what's the mix of units, please?
Mix of units, man, you ask tough questions. We have 1s, 2s, and 3s, some studios, mostly 1 bedrooms, We don't have any 4-bedroom units. I can pull up the matrix, and if you give me 3 minutes, it's going to take me a while to find it on their network. Hang on. Any other questions that are easier while I'm looking for the response to the tough question?
David, what's the breakdown of affordable housing?
We have units at a mix of 30% AMI, 50% AMI, and 60% AMI. I'm just going to that right now. So we have, let's see here. Great, I got it. So we have, looks like 65 1-bedrooms at 60% AMI, 5 studios at 60% AMI, 9 2-bedrooms at 60%, and 2 3-bedrooms at 60%. And then we have looks like we have 61 at 50% AMI, and then we have 18 at 30%. Oh, sorry, more than that. 45 at 30% AMI between studios, 2-bedrooms, and 3-bedroom units.
Thank you.
Any other easy or tough questions? Hearing none, I'm going to stop sharing.
I got one.
Okay.
Are there any plans for any green spaces around the development?
Not specifically. Well, so the project is pretty tightly designed. What we do have, and I will pull up plans for that. We have, it's kind of a C-shaped building, and inside that, the courtyard area of the C-shape is a parking garage. So not the most ideal situation from a green space perspective, but really good for parking. And then on top of that parking garage is an amenity deck for the residents of the building and their guests. And in that amenity deck, there is going to be a fenced in small soccer field for hopefully for kids. We are expecting a lot of kids to be in this project. And so that is an amenity space that we wanted to plan in for kind of that subset of folks. And then we also have some green space tied to kind of floodplain and stormwater storage that's immediately east of that that parking garage.
Okay. Any other questions for David?
I have one. David, kind of on the same lines. Do you know if there's going to be any markets or sources of groceries nearby other than Bryn Mawr Market and I guess Lunds in downtown? Do you know if there's plans for anything like that?
I have heard of no plans for anything like that. There are several locations that could make sense, particularly the what's his name? The Lloyd's site immediately west of the firm could be a location for that because it's large enough, as well as the old funeral home up on the northwest corner of Glenwood and Fremont.
The old funeral home used to be a Super Value or one of the big, large chain stores, grocery stores. It couldn't maintain itself.
Yes.
Not enough clients or people in the general neighborhood.
We currently own and run the Penn Lowry Shopping Center up in Penn Lowry in the southeast corner of that intersection, where the Aldi is. And the Aldi has recently told us that they're going to leave towards the end of the winter. They signed a long-term lease with us, and their lease is expiring. They had options to renew, and they decided not to. That is not widely known. And so you guys are hearing it here first. So they're going to spend a couple of months kind of getting ready for the exit. And our understanding is that they just could not make the business case work for them in that location. There are a variety of reasons that I think it didn't work for them. They did have issues with shrinkage, which is a term of art in the grocery and retail business, which is effectively shoplifting. And there is a relatively well-organized criminal elements at that intersection that I think has been a consistent problem for all of our retailers in that location. And then I think the additional issue is that there is not enough density of housing and wallets with disposable incomes in the 1, 3, and 5 mile radius of that location. And when we have engaged with groceries for Harrison, they have shared their concerns about that very same problem of not enough disposable income wallets walking around in the 1, 3, and 5 mile radius.
I've heard that argument, made multiple times over the years. And I just, again, want to push back against that because we know people are buying their groceries somewhere, right? Like they're going outside of the neighborhood to do it, but everybody's got to eat. So they are purchasing groceries. So I guess I just always kind of struggle with, the argument that there's not enough wallets on the street because folks are buying food. What would it take to, convince a grocer to come into the Harrison neighborhood at this point? Like, what do you need to be able to show them to justify a grocery store? I see people all the time in Harrison that are, they're buying their groceries, they're going up to Cub Foods to do it, or they're going, on West Broadway, or they're going to St. Louis Park or downtown, but they're certainly buying groceries.
So I agree with you completely. People need to eat. People need to buy their groceries. They're getting their groceries from somewhere. The real estate decisions for many national and international organizations tend to be pretty obscure and not transparent purposefully to allow them to gain leverage in negotiating with landlords or prospective land sellers. And so what you get in my chair is, as we're seeking out, national or local grocery store operators to be able to work in locations like this, or for Aldi to stay put at Penn and Lowry, is to try to figure out, okay, what is it that they want? And at the end of the day, they want to make money. And Aldi is the largest grocery company in the world. They're German owned by one of the richest families in Germany. And they're a really good operator from a dollars and cents perspective. They watch every nickel and they fight with us all the time on it. And so they're not a great tenant for us to have from an operational perspective. They're a good draw. And so they're a good anchor for us to have in a retail center to be around, for us to be able to attract other tenants to that retail center. So them leaving Penn Lowry is a major hit to our business model. And we certainly looked at ways to try to incentivize them to stay in that location. And they told us there's really nothing that we could do to convince their real estate team that they should stay put in that location. And we've heard similar responses about their interest in Harrison and in this general location. We have Aldi in 3 other locations, and we're very familiar with their real estate team that works the metro here. And we would absolutely do a deal with them in Harrison if we thought we could get it done.
I have one thing to say, and this is not necessarily a question, but just I want to advocate for the people working on the Minneapolis Food Action Plan when it comes to food systems and things like that. And the reason why I even brought up the question about green spaces was mainly because of, the activities around urban agriculture and the education around that for families, especially in places like Harrison, where I think there's about 4 food forests hidden in between houses in this neighborhood that we've been probably gardening for the past 20 years. A lot of people don't know about it or don't really engage in it. So we've been doing a lot of work on the ground to engage people around, you know, sourcing their own foods, and, maintaining these spaces to feed families that can't really afford, like you're saying. So one thing I know that I have included in the food action plan with the city is really trying to get it in line with the Milan Food Policy Pact. I'm not sure if you're aware of what that is. And I urge most developers to really look at that because there are tools in it that could actually give you a way to make money. I think there's enough room and be able to create spaces for healthier food options in neighborhoods like Harrison or Bryn Mawr or Bassett Creek and stuff like that. But it takes a lot of voices and people to sit and really think about what that looks like for them to find their own personal voice in it. And usually when I go to meetings like this with people talking about development, it's something that, I think there's a gap in between quality of life, housing and all this stuff when it comes to our living situation. And our food system is where that begins. Everyone has to eat. That's why people are concerned about grocery stores and sourcing food and things like that. Yeah, I think we can create that market. I'm sorry for interrupting you guys. I'll let you keep
super
going.
helpful.
Yeah. I was just going to say,
go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to say one thing. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yep.
Someone else is talking. Yeah, so I've worked at both Aldi and Target. I can tell you, just given how close in their mind Cub Foods is, about 2.5, 3 miles away from parts of Harrison, I think you're going to have a tough time getting a bigger box operation to come here for a multitude of reasons. Not saying that the community doesn't deserve it, but I think just being honest with ourselves there could be important. But I think, and I haven't explored this personally, this could have already been looked into with some of the other co-op opportunities. That just might be an area that if we haven't looked into recently, there's other potential options. But yeah, I think like an Aldi, a Target, a Trader Joe's, I just, again, having spent a little bit of time in that space, I won't disclose anything I shouldn't, but it's less about, I think, just, the income in the neighborhood. It's just the proximity. There are a few other locations that would probably compete and that would be difficult from a price comparison standpoint. That's what I'll share that I think we should just keep in mind. Not saying we should totally give up on it from a bigger box location, but I wonder if there's other partners we can take and if we would be better suited putting efforts into those as a primary focus. Does that make sense? Not trying to tell the board what to do, just a thought based on some professional experience.
Thank you, Eric.
I'd like to jump in for a second because I used to shop at the grocery store when there was a grocery store. It was very handy to have a grocery store in the neighborhood. It was never, ever a lot of people there, but there always were people shopping there. And we have talked about this for 25 years in terms of not having enough people to support a grocery store. And so until there is more people, the possibility of more people, maybe we should look at this problem from like a different perspective. Like, how do we get to people who could there be just a transportation service, like a van service that ran on a regular basis so that people could get to Cub or Rainbow? And I don't know how that would be organized because it's just coming off the top of my head. But if we can't get the grocery stores to come to us, then I think it would be really helpful to make it easier for people to get to the grocery store. There's nothing worse than being on the bus with kids and bags of groceries.
I wonder if I can pivot the discussion, absolutely recognizing the food desert that is the valley. David, what's happening with the rest of your company's endeavors in the valley? Your other properties for your other pursuits?
We're trolling for grocery stores. We're I think it's fair to say that we're pretty focused on getting Curry Commons in liftoff mode right now. I'm looking at back at the picture, there's kind of 3 other sites roughly that we have some semblance of control over, either through direct acquisition or, historic rights with the city. And we don't really have any projects in the immediate future that I feel to me like I could say here, I could commit that we're going to start construction in 23 or 24. It just, the cost environment and the cost of money environment is not conducive to new projects. And so until that changes significantly, I think we're going to be in a bit of a holding pattern, which, I know that we're all here to work on developments and thinking about how this neighborhood continues to grow. I would just submit to you all that this is hopefully going to be a long process. Like it's better for the neighborhood if it doesn't happen all at once, because that like major change has a much higher likelihood of negative externalities and negative changes to the people that are actually living in Harrison and Bryn Mawr. And so a little bit of a, tapping the brakes from our Fed Chair Powell is not necessarily so bad for the neighborhoods collectively to be kind of digesting a lot of the growth that is occurring right now and in the ground and under construction. And kind of back to the grocery store, I think, we have known since we started working in Harrison in 2015 and 16 that is a major hole, and an issue that I think a lot of people are bringing to the forefront frequently, saying like, hey, how about a grocery store now? And I think our best shot is frankly more people. And so the more that we can put more people, more bodies, both daytime and nighttime, into the parts of the neighborhood where it makes sense to add additional density, the more likelihood that we're going to get high quality services and amenities to show up and be attracted to this location.
I'm going to interrupt here with a little bit of history. When Heritage Park got the money to be able to be built, and they presented the same day we did the Bassett Creek Valley master plan, the courts, when they penalized, I believe it was the city, they penalized them on the grounds that you should not, must not consolidate poverty in one location. So as we move forward, whatever we build, it's got to be a good mix of affordable and market rate. So I would remind people that this is something, as we propose and move forward, that we keep in mind, that we do not consolidate poverty in one small location. That's it.
For that, Veda.
I would suggest that maybe it's time to pivot to Jim Vold, and he can tell us what development has happened, say, in the last 24 months in the Valley, and what he knows about things that are going to be happening in the next 24 months in the Valley, to see how are we getting any closer to having enough density to where somebody might in 2025 be interested in putting a grocery store in the Harrison neighborhood.
Yeah, that's a good suggestion, Michael. I think if there's something we can come back to, we probably will. So I guess I'd like to go ahead and have Mr. Bull go ahead with his presentation.
Hello. Yeah, I mean, I guess I don't really have a presentation. I didn't understand that was an item on the agenda, other than I'm attending the meetings, but I did talk with my colleagues to find out, a little bit of history of where things are, and David stole a little of my thunder. He talked about the townhomes and Curry Commons, and that makes sense, right? Because he's doing, well, not the townhomes, but the Curry Commons, he's doing that. But I did not hear from any of my colleagues anything that's in the next 24 months. I think David probably gave a pretty good description of sort of the development scene, but I do know that two things that are happening, and you know, the 1201, and you probably know this if you've been out there, 1207 Glenwood, as I understand it, the building, which is what, 127 units of residential, that's at Glenwood and Fremont, the southwest corner, that's under construction. And then the 250 Fremont, which, or should be under construction, the 250 Fremont project, which was something like 349 units at Fremont and Second, the northeasterly corner. That has received all of its city approval. So I think it went to the Planning Commission in early 2022, but it's gotten the other approvals from the city, you know, stamped plans and everything, and should be, this is from the planner who worked on it, so now I haven't talked to the developer, should be starting construction sometime. So right there at that area, that's two, you know, fairly large, well, I guess it depends on one's perspective, but pretty big residential buildings.
I think
Jim, right next door, who purchased the firm? Do you know, is that public yet, or does it public who purchased the firm?
I do not know who purchased the firm, no.
Okay.
Wasn't me.
Could they not make it there?
No, so the firm, I think my understanding is the firm is it's going to continue to operate.
Yeah, they're moving to Gavaday Commons, last I heard.
I'm sorry, say that again, Winston.
As far as I've last heard, the firm is moving downtown to Gavaday, the former Gavaday Commons space.
Yeah.
So they're going to vacate the buildings that they're in.
And they're gonna lease space from, is it Ned Abdul?
The YMCA?
Is it the Y?
Yeah, the YMCA is in Gavaday Commons.
Wow. Where Centerpoint is.
So we don't know who would be taking over those buildings.
No. And Jim, back to your comment on the big building on Second and Fremont, that's the building that on the schematics has the high ceiling height for significant retail on the main level. And any insight from the developers on who they're marketing that space to?
My understanding was the Fremont building, well, no, so I know I don't know the answer to that, but my understanding was the Fremont building wasn't going to have retail. It was the Glenwood building that was going to have retail.
Okay.
Yeah.
I could be wrong, but that's the way I understood it.
That's how I understand it too. And the Fremont building had to expand because they needed more parking. And so I think they're eating up a lot of their grade space with parking. Because they can't really go down that much because it's kind of wet right there.
But, you know, it's interesting back to the firm building that I don't know what would go there, but where they've got an advantage that hardly anybody has with that parking lot. Because, I mean, you can't build a parking lot that big anymore. They weren't even, you know, I worked on that project with Neil way back when he did it. And there was a big fight at the Planning Commission about whether he should get that much parking. And he always said with the guy who owned the 250 Fremont at the time, and oh, I can't think of his name now, the architect to the east. Why can't I think of his name? Dave Phillips, do I want to get that right? But at any rate,
Dave Phillips, yes.
Dave Phillips, thank you. That they were going to, you know, the parking lot was a holding thing, that there would be development there sometime, you know, when transit came in with Southwest and Blue Line and all of that. So, but at any rate, I don't have any inside knowledge, but it just seems to me that there's a big site there that's possible for future development, and in the meantime has a lot of parking, which is hard to get in Minneapolis now.
Mm-hmm.
But you would hope somebody would put a use in there that would have a lot of activity, you know.
As examples, what would you suggest? For instance?
Fitness studios.
Yeah, the fitness studio. Well, I mean, I don't know whether they're the uses that people would want. I just think that, you know, we get people who want to do reception halls or a grocery store or those types of things where they say we just can't make it without a parking lot, you know? So,
I think a grocery store would be a great idea.
yeah. Now, are there any hurdles to that, David? No, just joking. But
We're gonna need really big signage,
yeah.
a billboard on top of the building so you can see it from 94. The 1201 building is
Three big buildings.
the 1201 building that Rise is doing is coming along. They had a little bit of a slowdown for a couple of months while they were building the building in the factory. But my understanding is they're now, well, they were swinging precast plank last week, so you can see it going up. And I'm a little skeptical that the 240 Fremont building or 250 Fremont building will start construction this spring, given where the interest rate environment is and the difficult time that they're going to find getting capital to be able to finance that deal. But I could be wrong.
Well, yeah, and I want to be clear, so I didn't give misinformation. I probably didn't say it right. They can start construction. Nobody said that they were starting construction, but
yeah,
you know, typically when people get all their plans approved, then, well, I mean, then they're ready to go with the city at least. You know, obviously everything else has to be worked out from a financing and so forth.
Yeah, they're entitled. My understanding is it's jam up on cost and cost of capital.
Thank you, Jim.
You're welcome.
Well, that covers the major things on the agenda. Couple of things, I guess. I don't know where we're at for a meeting place for in-person meetings, but I guess it'd be nice if we could find a place for our next meeting. And the other thing is, when should we be meeting again?
Well, David is working on the location. He had contacted somebody at International Market Square. I don't know whether, David, whether you've had any further discussion with that gentleman.
No, he ghosted me over the last 2 weeks, but I've left a voicemail and I will again. My suspicion is that he'll reappear. And then we'll be able to pin down a location for us to meet at least in 2023 in person.
Yeah.
A couple of times at International Market Square.
My concern about meeting in person is that we seem to have a better membership when we do it on Zoom. More people are willing to just get on their computer, not in their car, and so on and so forth. So I'm a little bit torn in two directions. It would be nice to see all of you, but on the other hand, getting more of you to come to the meetings and getting your ideas and your, thoughts.
Is it possible to do a hybrid?
Like
I don't know that it's possible to do a hybrid. We'll have to figure that out once Vita and I get to go tour the IMS space that we're trying to get kind of interim. But I can commit to you all that so the Curry Commons project has some community space programmed in and designed in to the project on the west side of the building, kind of just south of where the main entrance is. And it's separate from kind of where the comings and goings and the main entry is for the residents, and has an access to the outside, and we'll have a keypad. And so it will be accessible for community use through a reservation with our residential team on site. And it's going to be a meeting space large enough to host meetings for H&A or Bryn Mawr Association or ROC folks. And we'll have, so long as we can keep it secure, we'll have technology in there to be able to host hybrid meetings so that we can do this both in person and via Zoom.
That would be nice.
Another suggestion would be the art space building. I don't know. That's here. It's right off of 2nd and Irvin or something.
Yep. Yeah, we can talk to the folks at Art Space. We know them quite well. Quite well.
Feelings on when we should have the next meeting?
Oh, before we move on to the next meeting, I have a question for David. If the economy slows down over the course of the next year and a half and development slows down because of the high interest rates, what would be the best what is the best use of ROC's time during that period?
That's a good question. Well, I mean, ROC was quite productive over the years when there wasn't a lot of development occurring in this part of the valley. So I would imagine that it would be similar to that. I mean, there are, there's like the LSE architecture firm just bought the iBob's building and moved in, and I think they're renovating it right now with a contractor, and that's going to be their new home. That's Mohammed Lawal's architecture firm. He's a very well-regarded kind of veteran architect that has got a great firm and is doing really cool projects on the north side in particular, but all throughout the Twin Cities. And I know there are other businesses that are kind of circling in Harrison. And so I would imagine that there will continue to be projects that bubble and should get attention from folks at ROC. I think housing is going to slow down for the next couple of years. Housing starts will slow down for the next couple of years, but it'll come back. I think this last cycle of significant production kind of proves out Harrison as a location for additional development to occur. And so once the cost of money kind of comes back to developers a little bit and projects can finance and pencil again, I think there's going to be a lot of pressure on Harrison, particularly with the infrastructure of the train being that much closer. And frankly, I think there's going to be a lot more attention on the West Impound Lot site and the variety of other parcels that the city owns that could get unjammed with public infrastructure dollars.
And I have another question with the firm leaving some empty space. What is the process for, say, asking the Wedge if they'd be willing to do some sort of small satellite grocery store within that space? Since there are very, I'm sorry, trying to find a place to park at the Wedge is absolutely impossible. They need to expand, and we're not that far away. And as has been mentioned, there's a parking lot. Who and how would that happen?
Well, the firm was likely sold for profit, so.
Do you know to Winston?
Right
do you know to whom?
I don't know to whom, Rita.
Okay.
I'm looking on the county's website right now, but I doubt the deal is closed yet.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully the good news is that buyer either has a user for the building, which is why they bought the building, or they're going to be incentivized to go find a user for that building. So when we figure out who it is, we should tell them that we want the Wedge.
Good idea.
Yeah, it's still owned by the firm.
Okay. Is that building one that can be developed further, like a second story or a third story?
It's two stories. It's two stories now.
2 stories now, right?
Not a great grocery store building.
Well, you can have grocery store with apartments up above. Or next to, or whatever.
Very, very specific type of building.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, you need loading.
Yeah.
Has stairs. It's ADA access difficulty because they have steps on the old building, and that's the real issue. That it's going to be difficult to do anything in there because you have to have access to that first level.
I'm very curious who bought it and what they plan on doing with it.
I think that building is ADA compliant.
They do have an elevator.
Yeah.
It is compliant, but I'm saying you still to have a grocery store, you're dealing with a lot of difficulty to move goods in and out, people in and out. When you have that, it needs to be one story flat. They don't want to have any issues unless they've got some kind of, are we talking about the building on the corner or the concrete block building?
The concrete
I'm talking
block
about
building.
the corner one, the
Affirmative.
2-story portion, 3-story actually with the basement.
Yeah.
Or the lower level.
The Allianz Française is a different building. The Firm building is the simple 2-story, probably 40,000 square foot building, maybe.
Yeah, that was a studio building. That was the original studio building when Wilson Griak built it. Yeah.
Interesting. Be really interesting what user is using that space. I'm curious.
David Davies apologized and said he would make it a commitment for himself that he would be here in February if we wanted to hear how Southwest LRT is moving forward. Do we want to have a meeting in February and invite him to come and speak?
Might I offer an additional agenda item that we could consider? If probably after David Davies, we could talk about what to do with the West Impound lot. Because it's kind of related.
Which is open for development.
Yeah, I mean, it's not exactly open for development because Public Works hasn't exactly moved off of it. But, you know, that was the mandate from City Council back in like 17 or whatever.
Right.
And
which reminds me, that's what we are. We're supposed to be oversight. If somebody's not doing what the master plan that was approved, then it seems to me that we need to start applying some pressure and saying, hey, what's going on?
Yeah, it seems like we should dust off the, 98
very good for discussion.
Comp plans, and we did some kind of pretty pictures and drawings back in 2016 and 17. I can show people and to get a response and reactions. I mean, I just think we need to start focusing some of the attention on it.
Yeah, you're right.
Can someone remind me of what's going on with that? Because the only thing I remember was it was either supposed to be added to or partially moved, and I can't recall what's going on with it now.
So the east.
Go ahead. No, you're better. You're more close to it.
So there was a project that got money and was built, and so that's on the east side of Van White here. Can you guys see this map? So the east impound lot here was redone, I think, in the 2020-21 timeframe. And this new customer service center is, I think, what they like to call it, was built. Which, there was some meetings, and Jim was receiving feedback, and I think the architect, Bob, what's his name, from Public Works, who's since retired, came and pitched us on their designs, and Pat was particularly vociferous about which direction the tow trucks would move, and whether or not they're going to be stacking right next to his building.
Still don't have a bus stop there, do we?
Nope. So as a part of that whole thing, the city council, I think it was in 2017 or 2016, mandated that Public Works move off of the west impound lot as well. There's a lot of police holds, and Public Works responds by saying, we're compelled to leave these cars that are a part of some criminal or civil litigation kind of in perpetuity. So it's like, well, what do you mean in perpetuity, like forever? And the answer is yes. So it's like, well, so that's our problem. And so these cars are parked, hundreds of them are ostensibly parked on this west impound lot, and the Public Works doesn't have a good solution for where they go.
I thought they agreed that they would clean up underneath the highway.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
And put the fencing up and put those cars underneath the freeway.
I remember that too. So the fencing's gone up and cars have been moved under there, but as it turns out, I haven't seen any reduction in the number of cars parked on the west impound lot. So they've just expanded their kingdom.
I also thought they were going to move some of those cars to county land out near the, I think it's like there's a Medina area where the county has sort of a public works facility. It may not be Medina, I can't remember exactly where it is, but it's west of the city and it's county owned and there's a lot of open land. And I know that because we've been out there for training.
Well,
Vita, can you drag someone from the city to speak
I
about
think
this?
we need to apply pressure on Public Works because I don't think they're holding up their end of the bargain with regard to getting off of the west impound lot and freeing that up for development.
Jim, whom would we invite from Public Works who could address the issue?
I honestly don't know the answer because the guy who I would have said before, John Worches, who you may know,
Yeah,
who
he's gone.
he retired. So
Yeah. He
I would
retired,
have to. I mean, what I would suggest is not putting this item on your agenda until we can have somebody lined up to talk about those things. I mean, it's fine to talk about it, but if you know you're, so I can call over there and find out who would be the
Vita,
person.
Who's the lady, the Bryn Mawr representative? She used to be the Speaker of the House in Minnesota. Isn't she now
Margaret
the director?
Anderson Kelleher.
Yes.
Isn't she now the Director of Public Works?
Well, she's the director of public works. Yeah.
Vita, is that are you
Phone a friend.
connected to Margaret?
I know Margaret.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
phone a
I
friend.
think that
and,
I think starting an informal conversation would make some success. Lisa, when we met Fred, you and I, Fred and Vita, when we met with them, that was a part of the conversation that they were going to move that to underneath the, move everything off that site except a small quantity of them. I think there was a row of them, but everything else was supposed to be moved off of that
Yep.
as part
All
of
except for the winter.
Exactly.
What do you
Exactly.
call them?
And that was agreed upon that. And we sat in that meeting with Lisa.
I hope you realize, I hope you guys know that she's retiring.
This would be a great
Yeah, we
swan
do.
song for
Everybody,
her.
listen, everybody's retired. This is 23 years, I think now. So everybody's retired or retiring.
The other ones
Not
that
running
aren't
again.
dead.
I'm still here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I will send a note to Margaret and ask her who could best address the issue for us and how and where we could apply pressure.
One of the things at the outset was the phenomenal photograph that was overlooking to downtown. And when you stood on that upper level on that balcony at David's, and I looked downtown, it is a phenomenal view. And I cannot imagine why we can't take and turn people's eyes onto that and say, this is a great, it's got its soils problems, but it's a great potential neighborhood. And seeing the mixed neighborhood, seeing the Wellington Eller development and seeing other things, the art space development, it's a great place to begin thinking about mixed use, drawing a bunch of people to one area. And then maybe then you get the services, but until, you know, it's just phenomenal to see that photograph.
I'm going to say it again. You guys got to come to the grand opening for the Curry Commons project because we have a big like community room on the 6th floor with purposely designed to take in that view into downtown. It's going to be amazing.
David, tell me one thing. Did you have to get a variance to go to 6 stories because of the soils?
No.
That's another part. We always talked about it being lower, and I'm a fan of going up because of the parking and soils issues.
Just more piles. So it's okay. Just put more
piling. I mean, there's all sorts of problems, but it's just, I'm glad that you're at least able to go. We'd love to see 10, but that's my 10 or 12.
I mean, I think we should be anchoring at 15 to 20 on the impound lot. I know that's a controversial position in this group, but I think you need density, and that's a really good location for density.
Exactly. And that's what's going to bring services.
Yeah.
That's when Byerly's or somebody else decides they can put a 20,000 square foot store on a first floor of somebody, 15,000, whatever it is they can get on there.
I have another question. When we get the update on the Southwest LRT, could somebody from the city come and let us know what their transit-oriented development money, where it's being spent in the city?
Can you send that to me as an email question?
I certainly can.
So that I can forward it. I'm not sure I would remember it accurately.
Right. I mean, I sort of
you-
lost track of how they're spending the transit-oriented development money.
Are you
And I
talking
would
about
like
like,
to get an update on that. Go ahead, sorry.
are you talking about the grants, like the TOD and the LCDA grants? Is that what you're talking about?
Yep. You know, I don't know how it's being dispersed along the line, but we certainly haven't had an update on that in a really long time.
That's
I wonder if we can get anybody from the firm or somebody who's in control of the firm property to talk to us.
Actually, what we would need to talk to would be whoever it is that's bought the firm. If the firm is moving out,
I don't think Kelly or Neil are going to be particularly happy talking with their tail between their legs leaving the neighborhood. So likely to figure out who's buying the building.
Well, as soon as somebody figures that out, let us know and we'll just all call them at the same time.
Just may I remind everybody that this group, before the firm was there, we had a plan. We approved as Bassett Creek Valley ROC approved the firm going in and actually encouraged the larger parking lot. And now we're seeing the firm move out, the cycle of life. And I think that's something to keep in mind, that we have seen these things begin to change and move upwards. So, I mean, there is not going to be I mean, we're fortunate that I have to say, every time I see a Wellington's name related to this, how successful these projects are going ahead. And it makes me happy but a long time, but it is meaning that we're stepping on things that have been, not stepping, but we're removing things that we've approved, and now new things are coming. So there's progress. It's just it's taken a long time. I see all of us, many of us have a little more gray hair than we started with. I don't want to say anything, Dave. I see all of our gray beards and Fred. Yeah, we were all had dark beards when we started this.
I do want to say something. You know, this is my first time being at this meeting, and I love learning about these development and plans for future things. I do want to consider the quality of life of people that have been here for 50, 60 years in these neighborhoods, and that are getting displaced at a rapid rate because of these things. Also, there's such a thing as a food innovative design for development and things like that. And I'm not hearing any of that stuff. Or like city planning to actually help create, you know, opportunities for residents in the place. I know it's business. I know development is a business and is, you know, all about making money. But the impact of being innovative about the approach to building up, like you were saying, has an impact on places like this, a massive impact on places like this, which is why I even mentioned the Milan food policy, is because it really has a lot to do with creating a safe and, you know, neighborhoods, you know, kind of a village concept around living and quality of life in places like this. Whereas now it sounds like business as usual to me. You know, like it's kind of, you know, we're talking money. You know,
I think because we're talking development, you get the impression that we're talking money. But if you look at the master plan, one of the things that we have as a goal is that as we develop in the valley, that we are improving quality of life for those who live there, for those who will live there, and for the city at large. That is the intent of the effort that ROC puts into the valley. It's supposed to be for present as well as future residents, for kids as well as the elderly, and keep on going.
but if we approach that from corporations like massive distributors when it comes to food, like the supermarket ideas you guys are talking about, and park and rims that are 10-story high. It takes away the view of the reasons why people moved here 60 years ago. And it also kind of increases the cost for these things. What I'm saying is this is brilliant. I love this group already. I'm learning a lot from you guys. But what I'm saying is just keep in mind alternative approaches to some of these things that could help that growth faster, and also, provide an impact when it comes to public safety, when it comes to like the cost of living, when it comes to creating supplemental incomes and jobs, when it comes to affordable housing, and things like that. I mean, on the ground, I guess I'm coming from on the ground, and I think I'm talking to a bunch of people that's been here for quite a while and kind of looking at this from the top down. Maybe that's why I'm mentioning that. I'm sorry.
No,
But
if you have suggestions, please, by all means, pull them out, share them, and the rest of us hopefully have open minds enough that we will give it full value. Does it make sense? Is this something that would help current residents, future residents in the city all at the same time? Please share the ideas that you have that would improve this part of the city of Minneapolis.
One of the things about getting older is recognizing that there's a huge amount of change that occurs in one's lifetime, huge amount. And all you have to do is, one of my favorite examples is to look at Mary Tyler Moore's opening of her early thing and seeing a place called Farnham's. You'll see a sign that says Farnham's. Farnham's was torn down to build in 1971, 1972 to build a Hennepin County courthouse, administration building. And we've had that all over the city, places where what have been what we thought of as normal, ordinary, everyday businesses that were successful, and I can name a bunch of them, Mankin at the Forum, a lot of places downtown that have changed. Here's an opportunity where what was called, I think, Swedetown, where all of the movie theater and everything disappeared. And now we have an opportunity to change this and rebuild that was part of the whole Bassett Creek Valley base, to build it new to be another 50 to 75 years. And I think that's really what this conversation is about. How do we plan it so that it's beneficial and it does not hurt any group or person or anything, gives more opportunity to the community. So I think input is the key. Just an aside, I worry about farmers market not being there 10 years from now or 15 years from now because the land is prime. So that's that's something I really worry about, and it almost seems to me inevitable. But
that's awesome. Thank you, Chuck, for that insight, because I am looking for some direction from people with like what I call foresight. I appreciate that.
But it's two ways, Marcus. It's two ways. It is not what I know, because I only see a very narrow vision. There's a great example. My universe is over here. Your universe is over there. How do we find out what's in each one of our universes? That's the point of.
Or build a bridge between them.
How do we connect these things?
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
So I would like to chime in from, the perspective of anti-displacement policies that Harrison Neighborhood Association has been working to advance for many years. And as we talk about development, I think that in this conversation and a lot of the conversations in this space, it focuses on increasing supply, which I'm not opposed to. I think most folks are not opposed to, development in and of itself. But I think that we need to ensure that we have policies in place to ensure that folks can afford to live in this city and that new development is affordable. I appreciate, David. I know that H&A has been pushing for more project-based vouchers in every one of these developments, and the 45 units that are in Curry Commons, like that is awesome. And we should continue, I think, to push each development that comes into the valley to incorporate as many project-based vouchers as possible, to ensure that those units are affordable for people who are earning 30% of AMI and below, and that those units are affordable for families. You know, we need to be providing spaces that, you know, 3-bedroom units. There's just not enough of those these days that are affordable. And, you know, we need to be able to control the rent and regulate rent prices, because it is out of control at this point. When we're seeing residents in Harrison having to pay over half of their income on rent every month, it's just not sustainable. Tenant opportunity to purchase. These are things that we can be working on, policies to ensure that people can afford to stay in this neighborhood, and that new folks that come into the neighborhood can afford to live here, so that, Vita, what you were saying about, you know, a mix of incomes. I think at a point in time, there was a concentrated area of poverty, but as this new development comes in, what are the, you know, the income levels that people are going to be, you know, earning as they move in? And I think that, you know, we focus a lot on like one development here, one development there, but you look at the numbers here and the amount of units that are coming online, and it is like the population of Harrison is like nearly doubling with the developments coming in the Bassett Creek Valley. And so I know that there's been pushback in this group around rent control and tenant opportunity to purchase, but I hope that folks would reconsider and understand the need for those policies, so that we can stay true to, you know, the idea that we want people to be able to stay in place here and enjoy the coming development and amenities.
Nicole, a question on the rent control piece, especially. I think obviously some other cities have, over the US, have tried rent control, different forms, fashions. Wondering what kind of examples have we seen where, if you had to point to a city or a project, you know, Minneapolis or not, where there was a ton of success with rent control? Are there some examples you can point to, just so we can maybe hear a different perspective, think about the problem a little bit differently?
Yeah, for a long time, rent control was successful in New York, although as, you know, as loopholes became created in that policy, you saw it become less and less effective, where you had vacancy decontrol put in place, and then you had fewer and fewer rent controlled units. But the rent controlled units in New York are still, I mean, so many people wouldn't be able to afford to live there without that rent control. The devil's in the details with a rent control policy. To some extent, it's been effective in cities in California and Oregon. But again, if you're exempting wide swaths of units, then it's less effective for the tenants. And so for Minneapolis, we're fighting for a 3% annual cap on increases, no vacancy decontrol, which means that the unit is still controlled after the tenant moves out. No exception for no exemption, I should say, for new construction. And so, you know, the work group that was formed by the city council recently came forward with a proposal. The city council should be taking up the issue this year to work out the details of an actual ordinance that would then be placed on the ballot for November of 2023. I can, if people are interested in reviewing, Eric, if you want to look at Cura, the research that they prepared and presented to the city, they looked at a number of different locations, but then they also took data directly from Minneapolis's housing market and ran models to see what the impact would be. So I think it's, you know, while it's useful to look at other cities, our best bet is always to look at our own housing market and determine what the impact would be, the benefit.
Yeah, I'd love to see those studies, because I've read, again, I think there's been a lot of evidence of some significant challenges with rent control as well. You mentioned devil's in the details, but yeah, I think there's certain drawbacks we should consider as well. But yeah, happy to learn more and read more about it. So yeah, if you can share that, that'd be fantastic.
One
Yeah,
of the things that
I can send it to Vita and maybe she can send it out to the
Yes, I
whole
can.
group.
If you send
One
it
of
to
the
me, I'll
questions-
just forward it to the whole group.
Okay, thanks.
one of the questions I have, not so much David, in what you're doing, are there any units that will be Section 8 qualification?
Yeah.
You know, one of the things that I think, as I remember years ago, I mean, this is years ago, that the city had some knowledge of what, how many Section 8s, which I think are 30%, is that what it is, 30% of the income? How many Section 8 vouchers there were in a neighborhood or a ward or something. I don't remember how it was, but I seem to remember there was a statistic that they had. And I think it might be good to have some way of, is there a way, maybe I don't think it's good. Is there a way to maybe watch that? Are we increasing by what Wellington is doing, the opportunity of those kinds of housing, or are we decreasing what's going on? Because I happen to think most of what's going on is in new areas. I mean, they're not taking anything out that has existing conditions. So,
Well,
I think we're growing that opportunity.
To be fair, I think and I think Nicole and others have been very clear about their opposition to the project that Sleederman did over just north of Second, the hospital properties that did displace, I think, like 20 families. And that was a major problem for those families. Like that was a big deal. And I think in the back end of that was 80 something units of mostly market rate housing with like 15% and 60%.
Where was this?
Just north of Second Avenue North.
Those just off of Glenwood.
Yeah, just south of Glenwood.
Between Glenwood and Second.
Yeah.
Oh, no kidding. They displaced the app.
Yes.
I didn't know that.
That was a big deal. I think some of those renters had been in those homes that Dan Ofstedel owned for a long time and did not have.
I'm sorry, I didn't know that. Well, that's a good. I think that statistic is though what we're talking about is trying to figure out where are we in this spectrum and what do we have to do to bring that number up. I think that's kind of the thing that would help ROC to understand what projects to support. I mean, we can support
the additional housing that is occurring kind of in the district that I've been working on. You know, that's 100 units of LIHTC housing that Art Space built, the 17 income restricted owner occupied homes that Habitat and the Land Trust are building right now, and then 187 units that we're building. Those are all income restricted, every single one of them. And you know, we have 500 units of LIHTC housing in Minneapolis and St. Paul, and the vast majority of those units are occupied by folks with Section 8 vouchers. And those are workforce deals. They're 30, 50, and 60% AMI income restricted funded projects, but more than half of the renters are Section 8 renters. And so we have kind of a disproportionate amount of 30% AMI folks living in those buildings. And
David, question.
They work just fine, but it does concentrate those incomes into a portion of the valley that has vacant land and is not displacing people when we go build Curry Commons or when we go build Art Space or we build Leaf Office Building or we build the townhome project. That's vacant land. And so that's the cost benefit. If we want to spread it out, we're going to displace people. If we want to not displace people, we're going to consolidate that development.
So the other side of this is that we end up too much concentration in the vacant land if we focus all of that. So we have to find some way to balance. The second part of this, I just want to remind everybody, the state is now going through this thing. What do we do with the excess money, 17 billion, 11 billion, 7 billion, whatever that number is. And I've already talked to my representative and a couple other people. And I think everybody's thing is that housing and education, don't send me back money that, I'd love it. Send me back, a check, that's great. but I think it's more important for society in the future, education and housing and deal with those issues now. Homeless housing is another big deal. Those are, I think, as important to society as giving me back some money.
David, I have a question. The three buildings mentioned, Habitat, Art Space, and your building, all income restricted. Certainly a major purpose of this group is to make sure we have equitable housing for everyone. However, I mean, I can't help but recognize a trend that in 2 city blocks, we have over 500 units that are only for income restricted. Is this an outcome from how you get your financing? I mean, what are the reasons that these buildings are going all income restricted? I'm much more of the perspective that I believe wholesale of a building should be between market rate and income restricted, not to the pittance that is the federal requirement, but to whatever the golden number is. But question is, are these all income restricted based on financing?
Yeah, primarily, it has been until Soliderman's project. It was unproven to be able to get a market rate project financed in Harrison for 2 decades at least. And
is this building built now?
Yeah, it was delivered last summer. I don't know if it's completely occupied, but they're leasing right now, and I think they're doing okay. It's winter's slow for leasing, so they'll probably hit it pretty hard in April and May and fill it up, I would assume. And so then the follow-on projects, the one right at Fremont and Glenwood, the RISE project, that's a market rate project, and that's in the ground. And I think I mentioned earlier to Jim Vol's comments that 250 Fremont project, the 330 unit project, I have doubts that that's going to be able to get financed and close and start construction. But I think 3 to 5 years from now, if the market continues to push for housing, what we're seeing right now is we can't build new multifamily right now because most people can't finance and close a project, right? And so we're going to deliver a bunch of units that were financed last year and that were under construction. And then there's going to be a gap for who knows how long. It could be 2 years or it could be 5 years until the construction costs and the finance markets come back to us. And so there's going to be pressure for renters to be able to find a new place, going back to Nicole's concerns about rent increases. And new single family homes are not also being built in the suburban environments. And so that pressure can't get released through new construction of multifamily or single family homes in the metro. And so the response to that likely will be, more demand means higher prices with no supply. And not the trouble I have with rent controls, it's a microcosm in Minneapolis trying to manage a broader problem, and Minneapolis doesn't control the broader issue. And so what Minneapolis will do is just constrict its own growth in lieu of letting St. Louis Park or somebody else do it. So I have other issues with rent control, but it's kind of not for this conversation.
I have real issues with rent control as well. I've done some research on it, and I have not seen any results of any of the research that I've looked at that have long-term been positive, maybe short-term, but not long-term. And when you think about it, if you're renting units in a city that's raising taxes by double digits every year, and you're trying to hold rent at 3%, you know what's going to happen. It's just going to be property owners won't be able to afford to keep up the housing, and it'll deteriorate. I think it's a really bad idea.
Coming back to Winston's question, could we get a mixed income or like a quasi market rate light project financed in Harrison last year? Maybe. I mean, I wasn't going to put my personal guarantee on that deal, which is why we didn't do it. And I would rather do a LIHTC deal where there's a lot more assurance in that project getting leased up, and I feel more comfortable with the market. And I'm kind of waiting and seeing to see the investments we've made in Harrison, whether or not that that impact, along with other developments, can prove out the theory of a more market rate deal. I mean, to date, Wellington has not made a thin dime in all of the investments we've made in Harrison. It's just not, the business case is not there in the short term. And so, I mean, I appreciate the kudos, but like, we do need to make a business case to be able to continue to have follow-on investments, and they need to be prudent. And, you know, so we're going to continue to try to find those prudent investments. And we certainly like Harrison and we'll be here long term, but it's kind of a balance.
I appreciate that, Dave. More people out here. Do we want to continue, or do we want to set a date for the next meeting and move on, or what?
I think we beat the heck out of our agenda. I think we have a good agenda for next month to drag city or public works in and keep them accountable to hear about light rail.
The third Tuesday in February would be the 21st. Does that work?
Hang on, let me check.
Yeah, while she's checking the calendar, I just want to ask, you know, I'm going to be developing a greenhouse structure on the underused resource up at Dowling. I know that doesn't have anything to do with these areas, but Dowling and Humboldt, there was a flower shop there that I've torn down. Currently, the land belongs to Lopet, and I'm going to be erecting a 5,600 square foot greenhouse there to kind of support the work we've been doing with the Park Board Public School in these green spaces. And all you guys are very knowledgeable about development. You know, I've raised so far about $1.5 million. Recently reached that mark when I was awarded $750,000 in the omnibus bill from Congress to see if maybe this is something that could, you know, help the larger conversation when it comes to communities like these around the climate change and, you know, food and hunger and stuff like that. So, I mean, if any of you are available for chat sometimes, please don't hesitate reaching out to me. Send you plans and just an overview of what that project is going to be. I know I have a year or two ahead of me, but any information or guidance is well invited.
Cool project.
Let me recap what I'm supposed to be doing. Nicole, you're going to be sending me something to send out. Has Nicole left?
Nope, I'm still here. Yeah, I'll send you the Cura report that was
Okay, so
created.
Cura report.
Yep.
All right.
If Marcus sent his email to you, you could also include that so that we could make comments to him.
Okay, Marcus? Can you, Marcus?
I'm here. I'm sorry. I was trying to unmute. Yeah, I can send my email to you. I believe I sent it to someone today too.
You sent it to me. I'll drop it into the chat here if that's okay with you, Marcus.
That's perfect. Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
David, please send it to me by email. I am so incompetent when it comes to this blessed thing.
No problem. I'll do both. I'll do both.
Me too.
You want to guarantee it gets to me. Okay, so I'm supposed to talk to Margaret and see whom she recommends from Public Works on the impound lot. All right, what else are we supposed to do?
And chase down a representative for the light rail update in February.
No, he already said, David already said he was coming, but I will remind him. David Davies, yes.
Did you
One
all?
of the things, there's enough people here who are possibly do not know about the banana. And it may be as part of the time we talk about light rail, we might bring update to the banana, what was done on the banana at the back, 7, 8 years ago now.
David, you sure you don't want to develop the banana?
Pardon?
David, are you sure you don't want to develop the banana?
I
Oh,
would be
what?
happy to develop the banana.
Yeah. With that,
But we've got master plans for we still have, I think.
Oh, yeah.
master plans.
So I have all those stuffed in a file somewhere. I can put those in a presentation or something.
Well,
So
I think it's more just to refresh people, because that represents a fairly large potential once the light rail goes through, and again, that may offset that was part of the balance anyhow. We figured that development would help feed some of the development elsewhere. So in the initial planning.
Doesn't a large portion of that fall within the light rail station development plans also?
Yeah, well, yeah.
to the west, yeah, but then the east portion is less so. There's a good 6 to 8 acres, I think, that we could get real creative with.
That's assuming that the developers who wanted it in the first place no longer want it.
I think Rick moved to Arizona.
He did.
Yeah.
With Collins.
Yeah.
Yeah, he did.
And he's retired, I think. I think he retired out there. But what was the guy's name that took his place? He's still.
Tony Barranco?
I think he's still working there, isn't he?
Oh,
He's still right.
Yeah, Tony's around. He's
Yeah.
good.
You want to invite him? David?
I can try. I don't know that I don't know that he'll
Just to kind
respond.
of- Are they still interested, or is the land up for grabs? That would be
Yeah.
something for us to know.
Well, they had didn't they have a little limited time on?
Yeah, they don't have to be right
5
anymore.
years.
They don't have, they don't.
Yeah,
have
that
any-
expired in 2015.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they only
Are
have
we-
5 years.
Are we still talking about the east portion of the banana?
Yes.
Because if so, I think Hennepin County, I don't know, I think that they had expressed interest in slow development on the east side of the banana in case there's a possibility of high-speed rail coming from Chicago and some sort of maintenance facility going in there. But I don't know what
I
happened
have
with
not
that.
heard anything more on the rail from Chicago, and what we had, and it was transportation. It was they wanted to put a cleaning and service on the west side, and parking lot for all the buses coming in or from St. Cloud and things like that. And we said,
what
hey,
what we were fighting for is partially was that if they were going to do that, then that we would want them to build ramp D
exactly
or something similar, on which we would then, that would be the plinth upon which
the rest
something
would
else
be
would rise above it. That was the whole goal, is working beyond just their needs for storage.
We were brilliant in those days, weren't we?
And ramp D, I still use that, Patrick. I still love that term.
Okay.
All right, John, I think we've beat the dead horse out of this meeting. Anything else? We move to adjourn.
Well, I think that's a good idea. And so I understand the next meeting will be February 21st.
Yes, 6 o'clock.
Yep.
Is everybody receiving my Zoom invites?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. I'll keep doing that.
And thank you for the recommendation to turn everything off and turn it back on again.
Sorry, it didn't work the first time.
Huh?
Sorry, it didn't work the first time.
Yeah, it's okay.
All right, well, everybody so I'm gonna post this and I'll send out an email when I post it up to YouTube so we can all have the record for it and send it to our
Okay.
friends.
Thank you.
Sound good?
Nice to
David.
see
How
all
you
of
doing?
you.
Appreciate
Bye,
it.
everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks, David.
Thanks. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Hey, everyone.
Okay, good night.